Antarctica is Earth's southernmost continent. It contains the geographic South Pole and is situated in the Antarctic region of the southern hemisphere, almost entirely south of the Antarctic Circle, and is surrounded by the Southern Ocean. At 14,200,000 square kilometers, it is the fifth largest continent and nearly twice the size of Australia. At 0.00008 people per square kilometer, it is by far the least densely populated continent. About 98% of Antarctica is covered by ice that averages 1.9 kilometers in thickness, which extends to all but the northernmost reaches of the Antarctic Peninsula. Antarctica, on average, is the coldest, driest, and windiest continent, and has the highest average elevation of all the continents. Most of Antarctica is a polar desert, with annual precipitation of 200 millimeters, though the average for the third quarter is -63 degrees Celsius. Organisms native to Antarctica include many types of algae, bacteria, fungi, plants, protista, and certain animals, such as mites, nematodes, penguins, seals and tardigrades. Vegetation, where it occurs, is tundra. Antarctica is noted as the last region on Earth in recorded history to be discovered. Unseen until 1820, when the Russian expedition of Fabian Gottlieb von Bellingshausen and Mikhail Lazarev on Vostok and Mirny sighted the Fimbul ice shelf. The continent remained largely neglected for the rest of the 19th century because of its hostile environment, lack of easily accessible resources, and isolation. In January 1840, terra firma at Antarctica was discovered for the first time, almost simultaneously, by the United States exploring expedition, under Lieutenant Charles Wilkes, and a separate French expedition under Jules Dumont d'Urville. The latter made a temporary landing, while the Wilkes expedition, though it did not make a landing, did remain long enough in the region to survey and map some 800 miles of the continent. In 1895, the first confirmed landing was conducted by a team of Norwegians. Antarctica is governed by parties to the Antarctic Treaty system. 12 countries signed the Antarctic Treaty in 1959, and 38 have signed it since then. The treaty prohibits military activities and mineral mining, prohibits nuclear explosions and nuclear waste disposal, supports scientific research, and protects the continent's ecology. Between 1,000 and 5,000 people from many countries reside at research stations scattered across the continent. The name Antarctica is the Romanized version of the Greek compound word Antarktike, feminine of Antarktikos, meaning opposite to the Arctic, opposite to the north. Aristotle wrote in his book Meteorology about an Antarctic region in c. 350 BC. Marinus of Tyre reportedly used the name in his unpreserved world map from the 2nd century CE. The Roman authors Hyginus and Apuleius. The long-imagined South Polar continent was originally called Terra Australis, sometimes shortened to Australia, as seen in a woodcut illustration titled Sphere of the Winds, contained in an astrological textbook published in Frankfurt in 1545. In the early 19th century, the colonial authorities in Sydney removed the Dutch name from New Holland. Instead of inventing a new name to replace it, they took the name Australia from the South Polar continent, leaving it nameless for some 80 years. During that period, geographers had to make do with clumsy phrases such as the Antarctic continent. They searched for a more poetic replacement, suggesting various names such as Ultima and Antipodia. Eventually Antarctica was adopted as the continental name in the 1890s. The first use of the name is attributed to the Scottish cartographer John George Bartholomew. Antarctica has no indigenous population. In February 1775, during his second voyage, Captain Cook called the existence of such a polar continent probable, and in another copy of his journal he wrote, "Firmly believe it, and it's more than probable that we have seen a part of it." However, belief in the existence of a Terra Australis, a vast continent in the far south of the globe to balance the northern lands of Europe, Asia and North Africa, had prevailed since the times of Ptolemy in the 1st century AD. Even in the late 17th century, after explorers had found that South America and Australia were not part of the fabled Antarctica. Geographers believed that the continent was much larger than its actual size. Integral to the story of the origin of Antarctica's name is that it was not named Terra Australis. This name was given to Australia instead, because of the misconception that no significant landmass could exist further south. Explorer Matthew Flinders, in particular, has been credited with popularizing the transfer of the name Terra Australis to Australia. He justified the titling of his book A Voyage to Terra Australis by writing in the introduction, "There is no probability that any other detached body of land, of nearly equal extent, will ever be found in a more southern latitude,